welcome back. It's another episode of Broker Talk. Today's guest is an absolutely wonderful woman. I'm so happy to have Stacie Peterson of eXp Realty and the B School here with us. Stacie lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I was just saying before we started here that the state has fewer people than my little town here in Massachusetts. So tell us a little bit about living in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You're an outdoor person. You like animals. We know you like animals.
Yes. Living in South Dakota, I think you have to have a lot of grit because the extreme temperatures, right? So today it's going to be 74 degrees, which is unseasonably warm for us. And in 2 days, it'll be 38 degrees. So kind of have to have this like grit about you, right? You have to like to have things change on you often. And yes, I do love animals. I have two kids. I'm married. So yeah, I'm just living my best life here in South Dakota.
Just because I listen, what I heard you say is, I love animals. I have two kids and a husband.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Tune out it's going to be 38 degrees.
Anyway,
So true.
yeah, the I talk often on the show about the secret sauce that people have in their life, and looking at your biography and what you've done, it's pretty clear to me right from the very beginning that you had some characteristics that you have carried with you since the beginning. You have always been interested in business and the arts, and I'm not quite sure the arts. I see your whole place is artful. I had a guest on last week or a couple of weeks ago that talked about feng shui, and I see that your office
Mm.
situation is set up in the feng shui way. Letting that energy circle around is an excellent
Right.
thing. But right from the very beginning, your first job out of college, maybe even before college, you were organizing things, you were seeing systems, you were helping people, and you wanted to do more. Um, how has how do you see your career and
Y-
progressing?
Yeah, I thought it was so insightful that you really gathered that because sometimes you see it yourself, but you're not sure that you actually went in a path that completely made sense, right? Like the puzzle pieces fit together. But you're right. From a young age, I always loved business. I loved the second I turned 14, I got a job. I loved people and I loved helping them. And so naturally, the things that I leaned toward were careers like that. And I think my love of business is truly about the systems. I like to, if someone has a complex problem, it's easier for me to take that complex problem and help them break it down and help them come up with things they can automate and do better. Probably more easy for me to do it for them than it is for myself, right? Sometimes our own things seem very complex. But yeah, that's really what drew me to business because I knew there were so many different avenues you could be in. My degrees in business. As you mentioned, I like things that are aesthetically pleasing. So that's always of interest to me. So real estate ended up being, a really good fit.
I My father was a home delivery milkman. And so when I was growing up, men have their issues, um, and one of them is the time we spend with our kids. Now I have a kid; he's not a kid anymore. But the only way I could get time with my father was work with him. So I would
Hmm.
wake up at 2 in the morning and go with him on his job. And the real benefit, as I think later in my life, was that I was able to eat when we got to the diner at 2 o'clock in the morning and all the other early morning workers were there. Um, I could eat just dessert. I was okay with my dad. He didn't care what I ate. So- oh,
Exactly.
another apple dumpling. You know, if I was sugared up, I would just run into. But by the time I got to school, I had already been in just about everybody in my class's kitchen that early that morning. So I knew if they had their homework done or what they did, and I realized early on that I was looking for what's normal
Mm.
And after a very, very long career dealing with people, there is no normal. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no normal. And what's normal is whatever you grew up with and whatever you feel is normal. And there is no average, even though we live in a business of average, and that's how we measure
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah.
you're doing an awful lot of coaching. Isn't that part of your job description? What exactly do you do at the B school right now?
Yeah. So Real Estate B School is a coaching and training company for, top agents and teams all over the country, United States and Canada. And originally I started out as a client. So I was the very first client, I was needing to grow my team, my real estate team, and did it fairly quickly and was able to take, again, kind of these complex concepts and complex systems and break them down so that they would work well in my business. And because of the owner at the time, or he still is the owner, but Lars, he realized, hey, you're able to take these big things and make them work for you, but nobody else really is. They're getting all confused and lost in the systems. And so asked if I would help him out part time and help these people kind of implement um, what he was coaching us to do. And so I was, of course, thrilled. I was like, yes, I love doing that. So it started out as I was a client and then started coaching a few people and realized that my heart was even more in helping other people build their business than just building my own. Because, like you mentioned, you got to see different people's houses and their family lifestyles. I get to see their businesses, how they're spending their money, what's working, what's not, what's a strength in their business, what's a weakness. So it was just I was completely thrilled to do it and worked my way up into director of coaching and then COO and then ultimately CEO. And now, recently, because I've kind of built an organization on the side of that coaching business, I now just help a little bit in the coaching arena. I don't coach as many agents for Real Estate B School, but help in my organization. So, still doing similar things, helping people grow their business, but now in kind of two capacities.
So everybody needs a good coach. It's
Mhm.
always spoken. There's always somebody who's watching you do what you do and can give you a better insight. It's true in sports. It's true in business. It's true in life. Um,
Yeah.
and systems are a part of it, but also is mindset. So
Mm.
let's talk a little bit about what stops people from being successful.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it in the head, right? It's mindset for sure. I think a lot of times, like you mentioned in the beginning of our talk here, is that we think reality is something when actually the reality is, you know, X, Y, and Z instead. We think we look at other people and we think, wow, they have their whole life together because they make a lot of money in their business, or man, they have a great team and I can't grow a team, so they must be great at these things and I'm not. When truly, when you get to peel back the layers and you get to understand, how people do things or why they're doing things, what you really see is they're probably good at 20%, maybe even less, maybe even 5% of something, and they've either assembled other people to help them, they've pulled in leverage, they've pulled in, systems, tools, whatever. But I think that's what ends up ultimately stopping us is we have this picture of I am less than, less than, less than, less than, and they are more than me, more than me, more than me. If we really knew and peeled back the layers, we would probably go after things more often and have a better mindset because they're not on the pedestal that we've put them on. They're probably pretty close. Maybe we need to learn some skills that they have, but maybe we have some that they don't, but we're
Right.
assuming they do because
Right.
they're just farther ahead in one avenue than us.
Right. I think you often see that when someone wants to increase their production. They
Mm,
hit against that thing and they think, "Oh my God, I'm working so hard. I can't do it any better." And if they do it a little bit differently or with a little different type of intensity or ask themselves better questions.
yeah,
If you're saying I can't, well then of course you've already determined you can't.
Yeah.
the better thing is, how can I?
Right.
How can I get around this? How can I solve this problem? And that happens in transaction after transaction.
Hmm.
I tell, I'm still in production. I tell people all the time when they sign up with me, there's going to be three uh-oh moments and one jump off the cliff moment. So
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen in ours, but I know what's going to happen, that we're going to figure it
Yeah.
out. And,
Yeah.
and that's a mindset. Um,
It is. I think also realtors will also do a lot of comparing in transaction numbers.
right.
So, as if that's the only measure of a great business. So, I remember a conversation I had with a client, and it was, well, I'm selling 500 homes a year, and this person's only selling 300. Why can't I get to 500? And what's funny is when you look at that way, it seems like the 500 person transaction is just obviously something's going way better for them, right? Are they just better business people? Do they have a bigger team? Do they have more lead sources? Are they spending more money? But when you look at it in actuality, one of the biggest factors, and you kind of mentioned it in the beginning, is size of
Yeah.
community or size of
Yeah.
reach, right?
Yeah.
If a person has 2 million people in their area and they're selling 500 homes, that's different than someone that only has 170,000 people in their area and they're selling 300 homes. So I think a lot of times, if we really understood what we're comparing ourselves to, our mindset would be so much better. If we
Right.
really knew where we wanted to go, we would stop with the comparison game and just start continue to move toward, our ultimate goals instead of where someone else is and we think we should be there.
That whole comparison game is a loser's game. You
Yeah.
can when you begin that game, you've already thought, well, if I'm going to compare myself to you, then then I'm either going to be a winner or a loser. And
Yeah.
I was a swimmer, and all the way through college, I swam during the Mark Spitz era. I swam not with him because he swam different strokes with him, but I was standing right next to him at the Chicago Olympic trials. I was about to swim, and he had just finished, just set another world record, and the people were around him, and nobody had beaten him at the time. He was like Michael Phelps, and just somebody who was an incredible athlete, really zeroed in. And the reporter asked him, "Well, you have no competition. What's your motivation?" And he said, "It's between me and Bulova." And at that time, Bulova was the timing device. So what the guy said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "It's me against me. I'm the
Yeah.
only one I can compare myself to. Am I better today than I was yesterday?" And that really resonated with me so many years later, because I can't compare myself to somebody else. I may not want to do what they're doing.
Right.
I have spoken to agents who are um, do 300 deals a year. Oh my God, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I personally don't. I wouldn't mind if my team did. That's a different thing. that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
leverage. That's
Yeah,
leverage.
exactly. And that's such a good point, right?
Yeah,
500 transactions. Is that an individual agent that, has no other life? Is it a team? Is it a corporation? Are they in an investment group? Right? Sometimes we just don't have the whole picture. And you're right, it needs to be me versus me. And that's where agents, I think sometimes too, and I know it was tough for me in the beginning, we don't track. We don't have any measurement except transactions. And
right.
that's why that always becomes the focus. But
Yeah.
if we're tracking that millisecond of a result in something in our business, then we know if we're doing better day by day instead of just at the end of the year, we're either happy or disappointed.
Right.
Did I make more money? Did I not? Did I sell more houses or did I not? Well, if that's the only measure of your business, then you probably don't have a true business. And that's something to look at.
One of the challenges that I've had being a talker, I'm actually more better as a listener than I am a talker. But that whole 80-20 rule, that when you're with clients, let them talk 80%, and the 20% that you're talking, make them good questions.
Mm.
open them up, because it doesn't matter what I'm not going to help them go out and buy my house. I'm going to help them go buy their house or sell their house. How you should do it. I had a discussion today with a woman who didn't want to do an open house at all. And I said, well, one of the reasons why people can't buy houses is because they don't have access to the house. You don't want to let anybody in. So if, nobody's going to buy a house. Investors do, and people do. I've sold them sight unseen, but that's rare. That's a small
Right.
percentage, you know. And
That really is.
if you're hearing objections, I know that you probably coach the same way I've heard every coach. No is not no; it's no for right now. It's
Yes.
and if you don't ask the next question or the next question or the next question without being offended, um, you
Yeah.
you know, because you don't know. Um, when something is going wrong with a deal, I know that everybody, because we have all real estate agents have a certain insight into other people. They often say, I get into this business because I like people. Well, the reality is, nothing's going to teach you to hate people more than being in real estate, right?
Right.
Because
So true.
people tell you the worst things, and they lump you in with every bad person out there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not understanding what their motivation is. You shouldn't waste time thinking about that. You should really focus on what their goal is. And when people feel that you have embraced their goal, they're more comfortable with you, because that's all they
Yes.
want. All anybody
Right.
wants is help me, and let me see you help me. Um,
Yes. We all want to be seen and heard. And especially if we're placing our trust in someone, we want to know that that person actually understands
right.
where we want to go, how we want to get there,
Yeah.
and what we want to do. It reminds me of one of my favorite books. It's called Millionaire Success Habits that Dean Graciosi
Yeah.
wrote, and he was a big, real estate investor. And my favorite part of the book, which is so simple, we've always heard it, is ask why 7 times. And sometimes that's really hard when you're
Right.
talking to someone and they're like,
Right.
I want to sell my house. Why? Because, well, why? You have to ask deeper questions. But really, once you start to get to that fifth, sixth, and seventh level of what they're trying to achieve and you're trying to understand, that's really the real part. But sometimes we only get to one and two, and we're like, I got it. I got the answers. Let me show you I'm the expert. I've got it all handled. When really it's, we probably don't understand, and
Right.
they may not fully understand either.
Right. Right.
But when we know that about others, and honestly, even ourselves, what we're trying to achieve, and ask ourselves why really deep, we're able to understand the next moves from a place of care and concern
Right.
versus, I know how to do it. Trust me, I'm the expert. You need me.
Transactional. You know,
Yes.
if you're transactional, people feel that it is a transaction. But if you are acting transactional, um,
Yeah.
that's one of the commission questions. In every situation, you're going to ultimately be asked the commission question, and I like to turn that around, because in my career, getting paid for what I do has not been as important as being liked and being appreciated for what I did,
Mm.
and that then became. I never understood the one thing, but that in a sense is wrapped around the one thing. I At the end of my day, when I put my head down, I want to know that I had done something for someone and they appreciated it. It's like
Yeah.
looking for that attaboy. And I took that to my commission question. It's like, I'm good at my job. Agents get paid. I'm going to get paid. I'm not looking for your commission. I'm looking for your testimonial.
Yeah.
Anytime along the way, if you can't give me an unqualified, I love this guy, tell me right then, and I'll fix that. Um,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why if you look at it as a success fee versus a commission, then that's exactly what it is. Number one, we don't get paid until we've, taken it to the end. But secondly, it really is a success. If it's a success, we're getting paid. Otherwise, yeah, you're sitting at the closing table, they're mad, you're negotiating, you're buying a fridge, you're buying all these things because, you really didn't probably take care of it the way you should have and taken care of the person.
Right.
And if your business isn't heavy in repeat and referrals, then you're not really paid in success fees. You're paid transactionally, and it's just not going to last.
Yeah, yeah. That I wrote down. I of course make some notes. Success leaves clues. That's always true. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
business kind of axiom, but people don't take the time to look at what they're doing. At the end of the week,
Yeah.
if you've had a bad week, look at actually what you did. And somewhere along the line, one of the things, because of time blocking, at this
Mm.
time I'm going to do this, at this time I'm going to do this. Well, I'm a creative person.
Yeah.
How many creative people does it take to change a light bulb? Does it have to be a light bulb?
Yeah, right.
You're
Does
lost.
anyone know? Yeah.
Squirrel. It's like, uh, um, and so I was never capable of really time blocking. Um, the one agent that I know in this area, been a guest on this show, does 300 deals himself. He's got an admin,
Mm.
but himself. That's a lot of hustling. And he is kind of a monotone kind of guy. He really knows what he's doing. And I wear the same clothes. I eat the same food. I eat at the same time. And I'm thinking, please just kill me right now. And yet I know for his clients, because I've talked to some of them, they absolutely love and trust him because
Mhm.
he's absolutely consistent. And
Yeah, and
consistency,
authentic to him.
yeah,
Yep.
yep,
If you tried to be him, it wouldn't come off as
uh,
authentic. Same for me.
right,
You know, we can't try to put how we do things into a box unless you are a very segmented, self-disciplined person, then that works for you. You're like you said, you dress the same, you eat the same, you do things the same. I also cannot function that way, but it doesn't mean that we won't function at a high level. We just function our way at a high level.
right, right. Um, this has just been a fascinating conversation. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
Well, that's a good question. I think we've probably done a great job in our conversation talking about it, but hopefully through this, people realize that the more you discover, what you want to do and how you want to do it, and find a person to help you get there, that's really, instead of beating yourself up about what you're not doing, or oh, I have a bad attitude, or I can't time block, or I have a bad mindset, instead of beating yourself up and assuming you can't get there because someone else did, just like Mark Spitz the swimmer and you were in the same arena. You just went about it different ways. There were different things you wanted to accomplish, and I think that's the same in real estate. It's not a one size fits all anymore. We all work differently. We all have different skills. We all come from different areas. And so hopefully they're gaining from this conversation that, you can achieve what you want. You just got to take the time to
Right,
understand probably where you want to go and
right.
keep your head in the game.
Right. I think another valuable tool in that whole looking at what you want to do, look at the clients that you want to have. Look back at
Yeah.
the clients who absolutely loved you and really kind of not say, oh, yeah, Bob and Sally, they love me. And, why did they love you? What is it that they
Mhm.
loved about you? And one of the compliments I got, a recent referral, they it was a really busy time for me, and the guy knew it. My client knew it, um, and he said we're doing the final walkthrough before we go to the closing. Um, Larry, I just have to tell you, this is the third deal we've done together. I know you're really busy. I have never ever felt I wasn't the most important person to you when I called.
Yeah.
That's a huge compliment. I said, well,
Very.
I really hide that well, don't I?
And again, I think it goes back to relationships.
Yeah,
Being authentic, having great relationships, and people understand we have lots of things going on. People understand, or maybe they know they're our first client. But either way, as long as we're trying to help them get where they want to go, doing the
Right.
best we can, you know, showing up, not being a commodity, we're not just a key to the door, we actually provide great service,
Yeah.
then, we'll probably have more business than we most times maybe want.
Sure, sure. But I want to caution agents who are watching and looking for that insight for them. Don't go out looking for friends. Go out and look to be of service to people. Go
Mhm.
out and help build your communities. People are looking for that. They're looking for that as a professional. Be that person. Be that person for
Yeah.
them. And if you have someone that you don't resonate with in some way or another, um, find somebody who can refer them, that you can refer them to. And I say this,
Such a good point.
I started early on. I don't work well with people who talk over you, or cut to the chase, stop giving me the bullshit. I just don't work with someone like that because I don't. But there are other agents who are just like that too. They always be closing people, and they always like, I'm there for you. So I call up those agents, especially the ones that compete directly with me, and I give them a person that I know is just going to clog up my time and my effort. Get them to accept the referral, and they think, "Oh boy, Larry actually likes me. He gave me a referral." And I'm thinking, "Thank God you've got that person." And then,
Yeah,
a couple of weeks later, I get a check for, wow, that's found money.
exactly. And such a good point. We don't have to work with everybody. And I think a lot of times when we're building our businesses and getting to a point where it's a little more steady income, we think we have to put up with whatever. You got to teach people how to treat you, and you cannot work with everybody.
Sure.
Everybody is just not your person, and it's okay to refer it out because
Yeah.
you'll go crazy. You'll burn yourself out
Yeah.
trying to work with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It just won't work. Stacie,
No.
how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you further?
Yeah, definitely. Any kind of social platform, I'm always at This is Stacie Peterson. Or you can, of course, email me, Stacie at staciepeterson.com.
Stacie is spelled Satcie.
Stacie. Yes.
Yeah,
Yep, that
and
IE.
yeah, you got to be right because
Yeah.
they didn't have a Y in Sioux Falls. It hadn't gotten there
No,
yet.
right. It wasn't here. And we just had to be different.
It's not SUE, it's SOIOUX. Oh my God.
Yes. Right. We're just trying to stand out, be different in every way.
It's been such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was a joy.
Thanks again to Stacie Peterson of the Real Estate B School and joining and listening to us. Tune in next week for another great show. Thanks for being part of our family here.